Hey everybody, welcome here to Musicians Edition. I'm Evan on the piano. In this video, we're not actually going to be headed over to the piano, but I'm going to talk to you guys about how to create your own personalized routine when it comes to your practice sessions on the piano. So I've seen videos out there that give you a literal guide of exactly what to do in your routines of practice the D minor scale, then practice these chord transitions. But I think it's so hard to do that and say that that's something you're actually going to stick with, because your practice sessions should always be evolving. And you have your own set of goals, you have your own skill level, and I think it's hard for someone to just directly tell you exactly what to play and you just stick with it, because your goals, your capabilities might always be changing and aren't going to align with what someone else is just going to tell you. But I can help you figure out where to get started, what kind of things to practice, and just depending on your skill level and goals will determine how much time you sink into certain things, or what kind of things for chords you're practicing at this level, and so on. All right, so we're going to talk about the core areas where really no matter what your goals or your skill level on the piano are, you want to hit these things in pretty much every one of your practice sessions. And our core areas we're going to talk about is going to be scales, the things that's probably the least fun for people and kind of repetitive, but scales always have their benefit in understanding what you're playing in songs and being able to stick within a scale in a song, and improving and understanding what notes might come next in a song and picking up on those patterns. So you got to do it. Next, we're going to talk about chords as another core area. Chords can be so many different things you're practicing depending on your level. Sight reading, our third core area here. And then technique and hand independence, usually starting off in technique, and then as you get better, it's more just focused on that hand independence and what you can do differently with both hands. And our last one for some could be ear training for another core area. So ear training is being able to hear something and then go over onto the piano and play it without reading it or someone telling you what notes those are. So interval recognition, chord recognition, things like that are what you're doing with ear training. So you do have your own goals, but your goals are always going to include these areas to some extent. Even if you think I only care about learning songs and performing songs, I don't need to do my scales or any exercises. Songs always include these things. Obviously, every song is in a scale. Every song has chords, typically. Every song has you doing something with your technique and usually hand independence of those left hand chords and that right hand melody. So you got to be able to be good with that. Sight reading, obviously you have to read every song you learn, unless you're doing those YouTube tutorials where the notes just fall, but I hate those things personally. And then, ear training, being able to hear that song and know what note is going to be coming up next as you're learning it. So there's no getting away from practicing these things and understanding. It's so beneficial, as opposed to just, if you think all you're going to do is read and learn songs, all you're doing is just memorizing notes. But when you get the theory background and the scales and the chords, you can have a better understanding and predict what you're playing and really get through songs without it being so frustrating, because if you're just memorizing notes, you're not picking up on patterns that makes future songs so much easier to learn. So with our areas down, our 5 core areas, from there next, it's just thinking about how much time and how much interest you really have to commit to learning the piano. So we're gonna say our gold standard is typically 30 plus minutes for 5 plus days out of the week. And that's good enough to really make sure you're gonna have consistent growth and be able to touch on pretty much all the areas to become a well-rounded piano player eventually. Just increasing that time or potentially days to boost your path of getting there quicker. But that's a good starting point. And there's no shame in it being a light hobby. You picking up and learning an instrument is such an accomplishment. And so it doesn't have to feel like so structured or like work. It can just be, some days I'm going to hop on and play 5 minutes. Some days I'm going to hop on and play 45 minutes. Getting up there even for a few minutes, even on your bad or your busier days, is better than just nothing at all, of course. So that everyday commitment of at least a little bit each day is so much better than just on the weekends I'm going to play for 2 hours. Your brain really works best when you're touching on those things every day. Give your brain time to sleep on it, think about it, come back to it again the next day, and you're going to see your learning really come into play there. Okay, so as far as our structure goes, I don't always come in with a set structure, but it's really good, especially if you are more towards the beginner level, to kind of have a structure ready. So warming up, for warming up, it's loosening up your fingers, maybe stretching them out, doing scales. Depending on what level you are, it could be just one-hand scales, two-handed scales, two hands playing octaves in those scales, whatever it is. We usually warm up with that. Usually warming up with some light exercises like the handed ones, and then usually throwing in some chord practice of chord transitions with the left hand, maybe the right hand included. Some simple chord progressions, depending on your level, if you can come up with your own, or doing ones in songs you've played recently. Chord transitions are always like such a key factor, and whether it's 1-3-5 triads or stretching it out and doing inversions or octaves, anything like that. Chords are such a huge piece to it. I also like incorporating reading in that warm-up, and I usually like to do for my students usually a reading game. I have an app on my phone, or coming up with our own little thing about practicing reading, and the kids usually enjoy that, and it's a way to get their and your mind into the mode of reading and settling into music at the piano, with starting lighter with a game and those warm-ups. We're warmed up, and from there, it's usually a mixed bag of songs and exercises, highlighting the things that you are trying to work on. And I can't tell you what you are trying to work on, but it's usually those core areas of making sure, especially with songs and exercises, technique and hand independence, we really need to boost those. I think theory and all, recognizing patterns and all that comes quicker, but hand independence is such a long journey that you can just keep on getting better and better with. So that's always something that should always be a huge priority, because we're here to play and sound good at the piano. So songs and exercises, highlighting ones that are really going to boost your level. So that could be Hannon, that could be the Zerny exercises. It could just be songs you hear that have some things that are tripping you up that you can practice with, and then you find exercises that fit that same kind of a thing. But whatever it is your level, mixed bag of songs and exercises is your meat and potatoes here. Usually done in small chunks on each one that are going to be broken up. Sticking with the song for 20 to 30 minutes, sticking with an exercise for a long time is so frustrating and just not really effective. Doesn't make piano that fun, I don't think. So we'll usually break each thing up, sticking with just one song or one exercise for a little bit of a time, even if we haven't mastered it yet and we think we need to play it to mastery. Taking that break and just refreshing our mind, letting ourselves sleep on it, really makes it so that next day or the next time we come back to it, it becomes so much easier if we just do that instead of trying and trying and trying to get it in that one day. And if you do feel like you're hitting roadblocks in those songs, I think it's always best to really isolate the different parts. So I will always slow down that tempo a bunch, focus on that right hand for those few measures or whatever I'm learning at a time, really get that down, focus on that left hand, really get that down, both still slowly, put them together at that slower tempo, think about right playing by itself, left playing by itself, when they both play together, and just getting that down, slowly increasing, and then adding in the earlier parts of the song that I already know so I can transition into that section I'm learning. But just slow it down. You don't have to go the full speed. You don't have to see it and do right and left all together. Really break it and isolate that part. I have some students who always want to start the song from the beginning, even if we're working on something in the middle and they know the beginning super well. You're just wasting your time. Isolate on that one part, get it down, and then at the end of that practice session, put it all together. And that's really it for it. So I'll usually mix in some tougher songs that I'm kind of struggling to make it through, that I do really need to focus on, and then I'll mix in some lighter songs that I pretty much have down and just need to fine tune, and then always some fun songs that pop into my head that I know I'll throw in. And for my wrap up, it's usually those tougher songs, hearing that full song together, or coming back to it one more time at the end, and maybe one more fun song to finish up on before I wrap up for the day. And that is pretty much it. So just to summarize, we've got our warm up with scales, chords, maybe a practice reading, maybe some exercises. We got our big chunk in the middle that is exercises and songs, really focusing on what we want to learn. And then we've got that wrap up of maybe doing that song we were working on one more time, throwing in a fun song or whatever it is to finish up. And when we do that, we should be hitting every chord area. Most often for warm-ups, once you do have them down, throwing in some scales that have white and black keys, or just messing around in the scale that you know a song you're going to be learning is in, so you can get familiar with it. Chords, done in the warm-up, done in our songs, done in our exercises. We touch on it everywhere. Make sure you're familiar with chord voicings, eventually inversions and arpeggios of chords too. There's so much we can learn with that that is, I think, just so fun and helpful for understanding songwriting. We've got sight reading. Sight reading can be done with games, apps, exercises, songs, all over the place. Technique and hand independence, you just coming to play, you're already practicing that, of course, but making sure you're boosting up the areas that you need to work on. So when you're playing songs, what do you struggle with? Let's find some exercises that tailor to that, or push through songs like that. We always want to be boosting up our hand independence and keeping that in mind. And lastly, that ear training. Ear training I'll often throw in as a break in between songs or in between, exercises when I feel like my hands are starting to get tired and I just need to let them relax for a few minutes. I'll do some ear training, I'll sing some intervals on the piano, or I have an app on my phone that I use as well too. There's free apps or websites you can practice that interval recognition. And that is hitting all of our areas in a practice session. So let's just finish off with just showing you what my routine is right now. Mine does change like yours, but the difference for me is I've been playing for such a long time that some of my skills I'm at a point where I'm happy with, so I'm not really trying to push some of them further. Like my reading and my technique, I'm pretty happy with. And so it's more of like maintenance and just really learning songs and new things that I find interesting on the piano. So for me, that's usually a warm-up. Sometimes I'll do scales, but usually what I'll do is I'll just pick a scale and play around with some chord transitions, a little bit of improv in that scale, find a melody I like with the right hand, or chord arpeggios with the right hand while I play around with some chords on the left. I usually warm up just like that. Throw in maybe some lighter exercises like some hand-ins. Lately I've been doing a lot of multi-rhythm exercises where my right hand plays at one time signature and my left is at another. So my right's playing 1, 2, 3s while my left is playing 1s and 2s in there too. So I've been working on that a lot. And that's my warm-up usually. Into it then is really just a lot of songs, and for me probably too many songs at once, just because I feel like I always have a really long list of songs I want to learn. So I might have up to like 5 songs I'm learning at a time. Usually like 1 to 2 that are the really focusing and paying attention, the difficult songs for me that do take time. There's some songs I'll throw in that I hear and I can get through in a day and they're easier to do. And then songs I'm just fine-tuning, I know all the notes and just need to get quicker or, more consistent on the transitions in the songs. And that's usually what I'll practice for the main chunk of it. Sometimes I find new exercises that challenge me, or if I hit a speed bump in a certain part of a song, I'll find exercises that challenge me. But I don't do too many, exercises as I play. It's just a whole bunch of songs to get me going, and that's what I really enjoy at this point too. Then I'll wrap up with whatever song was the most difficult I want to just see put together one more time before I go, or what's a fun song I want to throw in at the end to make myself feel good. Usually like a song like Married Life or Bohemian Rhapsody, I'll put in like the warm-up or the wrap-up as something fun I just always like to play. And that's usually a session for me. It's not always coming up with the plan. Sometimes that plan is just, I heard this song today and I want to learn it, or I want to play it again, and then just I end up doing whatever from there. I think having some sessions with structure and just having 1 or 2 during the week where I just come in with a blank slate and just do whatever I want to do is a really good thing on the piano, so it doesn't feel so much like work and feel like I'm doing the same thing every time. And that is it for us here on Musician's Edition. So I hope this was good help for you to work on developing your own practice routine. You got those core areas: scales, chords, technique independence, sight reading, maybe some ear training. All those things should be pushed on a daily or weekly basis to really have well-rounded growth as a pianist. So have fun playing, and we'll see you next time.